Welcome to Larp Academia. Today we're going to talk about how to make chainmail. Now I'm planning on making a few extra videos every Thursday here and there to give you some more content than just what we're currently covering. And today we're going to talk about chainmail. Now this is a month-long process, so there will be different cuts and everything else going on, and don't expect chainmail to happen in a day. But I'm going to describe to you how to make chainmail all the way from your first little link, how to make the links, into making a full hubric. Most chain videos just cover, oh, we're going to show you how to make the 4-in-1 pattern. Well, we're going to go beyond that. We're going to show you how to get the tools to make the rings, how to coil the rings, how to cut the rings, how to make the 4-in-1 pattern, of course, and then how to just keep going until you eventually get this amazing set of chainmail. So, without further ado, let's dive into it. Now this, my glorious friends, this is what we call a jig. As you can see, it's basically 3 pieces of wood, 1, 2, 3, with a few extra pieces of wood in order to stabilize it. There is also a metal spindle. You want it to be a crank, just like you would want a crank in movies or whatever, like some Disney movie, but you want that crank to be able to be put through a hole here. Now, something really weird. You'd think, Wizzo, how do you get the chain on this? What is this magic? Well, you take a drill and you drill a little hole that's just about the right size for the wire that you're going to be using. Now, I spoke about wire. Well, let me show you. All right, wire. As you can see, it is wire right here. This is from Home Depot, Field Guardian aluminum. You can get steel as well. You'll probably want more than 120 foot. I had to get 5 rolls of these for what I'm doing, which is kind of a cheat. I'll tell you about that cheat later on in the video. But as you can see, it is 14 gauge to be a little bit stronger. It's got a wire bit here. And why wire? Well, let me show you how to put all these things together. As you can see, the wire and the hole actually can work. So what you need to do, this is very hard with the left hand, but what you need to do is you need to put the wire in the hole. All right, now as you can see, it is in the hole just a little bit. You don't want it to be too much out. And we're going to start the coiling process. Now, for the coiling process, you at first probably want a glove. If you have your normal hand, it will cause problems. This is why I have a handy dandy crappy glove that's used for gardening or whatever else. You want it to be thick and durable, a little bit strong, so that it'll be able to withstand the metal. As you can see, there's some shiny bits from me using the metal. Now, how do you do this? All right, now you can see where we are. It's a little bit of a weird angle, but that's the best I can get. What you need to do is you need to make sure that you have your hand here to crank it a little bit. When you coil it, it's a little awkward trying to not get in camera, but when you coil it, you will start to go slowly at first. Now, as you can see, it kind of wraps around. Let me show you a bit more. So that's a beauty of a coil right there. There's a small little gap right here, but that's okay. You want the least amount of gaps as possible, and you want it to kind of look solid like this. Now, something to keep in mind is that how I had my hand here and here and here, I'm pressing down so that I'm able to make the line taut in order to get rid of some of those wrinkles. And when I have it here, my hand here, I make sure that I roll, and then when it gets too far, I move my hand over a little bit, and that means that this can go here. It's a little hard to show you while I'm coiling, but that is one beauty of a coil, something that you want. Now the next thing that you're going to want to do is cut it. You want a pair of good wire clippers. Why? Oh, you'll be using them a lot, far more than this. Oh yes. So you get your good wire clippers, you cut this end, and then you cut this end off. Now I've done a clean cut right here, and I have done a pretty clean cut here. What you want to do then is just get this a little bit out so that you can get your next coil in. And it's kind of like if any of you guys have used an apple peeler, then you'll kind of get the same idea where you want to pull it. You want to, hard to show, keep pulling it until, voila, this is out. Your coil's done. You put your metal rod back. Your jig is all ready again, and you have one very nice coil. Now what are you going to do with this coil? Generally you want a few coils before you start with this, but what you'll want to do is you will want to make sure that you get an end even. If it's a little off and it's not circular, then you want it to be cut. Next, you are going to cut one ring at a time until the entire coil is done. Much better angle. So what you want to do is you want to cut little by little. See how there's that little bend? That's because it's aluminum. Steel will just be like, what are you doing? And you cut all the way back. Now, after all of these little fun rings that I got out of the coil, I want to say a few things. Chain is going to take a while. Usually, I have made 3 hubrics, and the minimum time that I have taken is 80 hours for a teeny tiny person to make it for her. And chain will take a while. It will be actually kind of cheap, because honestly, if I was smart about how I got my chain and I already had, you know, a jig and everything else, or if I had some wood lying around as well as my metal rod, then I would be able to make this for relatively cheap. I would say actually it was around $70 for my first chain hubric. It wasn't too much at all, but that's something to consider. Now, after making 3 chain hubrics, I have a few tips for you. You know how I had multiple coils? Well, you'll want to separate them into 2 separate piles before cutting. Why? Well, the fun part. Actually, disclaimer, it's all fun because it all takes forever. You see how there's an opening? Well, you can do one of 2 things. You can either take 2 pliers and close it, and when you close it, you want to rub against each other a little bit so that it's closed. Otherwise, if you don't rub, that'll mean that it's a little bit more open, more likely to be taken away, and that's why my first chain set is actually horrible. Or, the second thing you can do is you can open the links. Now, what does that look like? I would take my pliers, and I just bend it a little bit. So now I have 2 piles. One of closed links here, and one of open links. Why do I want so many open links and instead of all the closed links that you usually see in chainmail? Well, we're going to get into the pattern now, which is... Now, before we get into the pattern, you've probably made your bags of chain. This is my bag of closed. This is my bag of open. You'll want more closed to begin with, but eventually it'll be even. Why? Well, let me show you the start of it. The reason why it is called 4 and 1 is because you will be making 4 links. 1, 2. See how they're on this side? And then you'll have another one. 1. And loop around. 2. And you'll want it to look like that. Next, you will close the chain. Ding, ding, ding. Make sure to do your little rub so that it actually has a little bit more. And it'll look like this to start. Now, this doesn't look like chainmail. This just looks like some weird keyring thing. Well, that's where everything starts. Once you have it laid out, you see how I have it where the middle chain is pointing towards me and the other ones are pointing away. That is the pattern. So what I'm going to do in order to add to this pattern is I am going to take one open link, loop it, and then I am going to make 2 closed links go on to the side that's not closed. I now close the open link. I know a lot of closed and open terminology. Rub again, and voila, I have the start of my chain. If I am going to extend it this way towards me, then what I want to do is the exact same thing. I want to revolutionarily take a chain, an open chain link, hook it underneath make sure that it is flat and fine. This is the problem when you start. Sometimes you'll hook it on 3 links, and if you hook it on 3 links, it'll be a 5-in-1. It's trying to support 5 rings instead of 2, which is terrible, and you don't want that. You don't want to make it so that your chain's going to bust. I mean, come on, you're trying to make it so that it'll last, even if it is butted. So rubbing it against each other will actually extend the lifetime of and the durability of butted chain quite a bit. Now, as you can see, I've been adding 2 at a time, but that's just because I'm adding forward or back. If I'm not adding forward or back, give or take an extra few dozen hours, then it will look like this. As you can see, a lot more chain is done. Now, when you're doing chain, you'll probably notice that you want everything to lie flat. That, well, I mean, I don't care. I'm not working with that. And also something else that you notice is that as you get more chain done, the easier it is to actually do. Let me show you how that looks like. So what you will want to do when you actually have more chain like this, you want to go over, under, under. Now that you have that all the way under, you put your extra little close link on. You then make sure you close it as per normal. Make sure to rub the butts together. A little juvenile humor, I guess. And lamb. You get one more. Just do that a few hundred, possibly 1,000 times, and you will have a flat sheet of chain. Now, something to note is that of all these chain pieces, if I am going to make it riveted or butted, butted or riveted, the difference. Butted, see how those were just closed? Riveted is where I would pound the sides of the chain here and here, and then I would make them flat. I would then make a little hole, just like we made a hole in that metal cylinder when we did the little crank, and then I would put a little pin. I would then make the pin closed so that these links are extra strong so that it's just harder to get rid of. If you weld it, that's not as strong as riveted because it's just a little bit stronger than butted, really. You're melding the metal together, but at the same point, for things like aluminum, you're just pulling it. The pin actually provides a lot more tensile strength. So if you want to go riveted or welded, I would suggest riveted. It's just, I will never do it because that is an absolute monster of a process and adds a whole nother step to this hours long monstrosity. Oh my God. Also, one thing to note before we go any further, my hands are, you can probably see a little bit, they're kind of dirty already from the chain. If I coil a bunch of chain, or if I make them close, open, cut, whatever, my hands will get extremely black. So try to make sure that you wash your hands whenever you're done with this, because this is a lower form of blacksmithing, but it is blacksmithing debatably. Now, I am going to extend this video a little bit to show you about chainmail repair. Now, the first thing to do with your chainmail is to make sure that it is flat, and realize that chainmail repair is much harder than chainmail, well, creation, because as you have to see, we have to find a hole. Oh, hey, so we have found a hole. Where's the hole? Well, a good way to figure it out, aside from looking, is to take your hand, just slither it, look around, try to see if you find an obvious one, and then, aha, you should see it right there. See that there's a missing link? Put my finger through it, that's bad. So we need to figure out how to repair it. In order to figure out how to repair it, we have to look at the pattern and see which way the links are going, which one's missing, how many are missing, and when a link is missing, you want to stop using your chainmail. Why? Well, you might think just one link missing isn't bad, but that puts extra strain on the other links, and it just makes it far worse. So if you see that there's a hole while using it, take it off and just wait. You'll have to deal without it. I know, it sucks, but just wait. And now, it's a little too big for this area to be one link, so there's one link going this way and one link going that way. If you're unsure, add one link at a time. Otherwise, it won't work well. Now, the best way to make sure that you actually have this area is to prop it up with something. Right now I'm using a coaster. If you stretch it a little bit, you can see that right there is an open area. Now, in order to get the most surface to work with, you want to stretch your chain as much as possible. So stretch, stretch, stretch. Okay, I see where it is. And there are some links that aren't as strong, so you will want to touch up those links before you add more. And if you are wondering, this is a different set of chain. This is my steel chain of my first time making it, so there was a few mistakes I had to touch up. You will want to use the open linked ones, the ones that aren't closed, because, well, you're trying to bring it into that area. Now, this is a little difficult because I don't have a way to keep this free, but as you can see here, the triangle there, I did the over-under pattern, just like we normally do, and now I'm going to close it. And voila, it is fixed. It actually only needed one link, which was surprising, but I found that out after looking at it a little bit more. Now, this took me about, 6 minutes to do this one link, to find it, properly put it in place, mostly explaining to you, but you get the idea. It takes a lot longer and is a lot harder to do armor repair than armor creation. So I'll be doing that for the rest of this, and then I might actually show you how to attach an arm for the last thing. No, I'm not going to. Aside from riveted, which I'm not going to teach you how since that is a pain. And then I think we are done, but this is the principle on how you get chainmail repaired. You find the area, you make it obvious. You could use cardboard instead of a coaster, and then you slowly figure out what it is. You might be wrong in your first assessment, like I was, and find out upon closer inspection and pulling the links that, oh, this is actually what it requires. And then you just fix it. And that is everything about chainmail, well, butted chainmail, aside from I do want to tell you one more thing about chain, though. The aluminum that I made to try to show you guys and to try to make my own chain for larping and saying that it might be useful, well, I tested it out, and it is able to be used in very light larps. But I would say that you have to be ready to do armor repair, and that it will break down far quicker. It's not complete garbage if you're doing barely light touches, as long as you don't move your body too much, which, I mean, that's up to you. If you do move your body a lot in light touch LARPs, then the aluminum butted chain won't be for you. Just make 16 gauge galvanized steel. That's what I usually do is, well, the chain that I have right here, it is galvanized. This is the one I just repaired to show you. And I would highly recommend making butted galvanized steel. If you do it correctly, then it will last you for a long while. If you do it incorrectly, you will be constantly repairing it and trying to fix your mistakes. So do it right the first time, since creation is far easier than, well, fixing it. How anyone can actually make chainmail, taking all the mystery out of it, it just takes a lot of time. And I really do look forward to seeing what you guys do, what chainmail you make, or what other armor you would like to see, hear, or know about. Again, I don't own a blacksmith. I'm not able to make plate mail or anything, but if you are interested, I might be able to show you a small thing or two. Until next time, this has been Wizzo, and keep LARPing!